The power of books on a personal level. This is going to be part 1. I will make a part 2, and I'm not going to just focus on the personal level, but I'm going to show the power of books, or my belief that the power of books has on a global scale. Books have the power of time travel and teleportation. While reading, you could teleport to a universe that has dogs that speak to you, or you could time travel and watch the pyramids be built, or stand right alongside the first man as he left Africa. All of this while never physically leaving your room. There's a quote that I love by George R.R. Martin, and it goes like this: "A man who reads lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one." When I first heard that quote, I fell in love with it because it struck me to my core. It just goes to show, and it perfectly encapsulates how amazing a tool books are, and a healthy way to escape your reality. Reading can also be a sobering experience that makes you appreciate the reality and the environment that you live in, depending on the literature you choose to read. In this video, I'm going to break down 3 books that had a pretty profound and a paradigm shifting change in my life. Book number 1 is going to be Brian's Winter by Gary Paulsen. Now, this is a sequel to Hatchet, but it technically is a sequel to The River, which I also have. I've Hatchet, Brian's Winter, The River, and I forget the 4th book. The 4th book is Brian's Return. Gary Paulsen was saying he's getting 200 letters a day saying The River just didn't end correctly, and they wanted to see what would happen if, from Hatchet, the original Hatchet, if Brian never actually got saved, if he had to survive the winter, what would that look like? And that's where this book came from. In 8th grade in Mr. Tonelli's class, I was given an assignment where we were able to go to the library and pick a book of our choice and then make a report on it. Little did I know, this book was going to change my life. I always had a pretty cruddy paradigm towards reading since I was a young child, just because of some childhood health complications. I've explained that before on this channel, but we're not going to dive too deep into that in this video. Maybe another video. It was 8th, so when we got down to the library, I was dreading having to pick a book because I hated reading, and I did not want to read and have to do a report on it. I already pretty much considered this going to be a 0 on the report card because I wasn't going to do it. But I read Hatchet in 4th or 5th grade with a teacher, and so I was just walking through the library. I'm trying to look for a short, easy book to read, and then I stumbled upon Brian's Winter, and that kind of piqued my interest because ever since I was a little kid, I've been obsessed with survival stuff. I watched Dual Survivor, Survivor Man, Bear Grylls, everything of that nature, you know. I even have right here my original fucking Bear Grylls Flint and Steel from when I was a young kid. But so I saw that Brian's Winter, and I saw that it was from the author of Hatchet, and it was a sequel of Hatchet. So I was like, you know what? Let me get this a try. I reluctantly grabbed it. I opened it up. I'm like, all right, it's short. It's easy to read. Might as well. Still not fully committed to getting this assignment done. I thought this was going to be a 0. I procrastinated picking this book up like nobody's business. 2 weeks went by. I think we had 3 weeks to do the thing, and it was pretty much the last night, or the second to last night, that I decided, let me just see how many pages I can get in. And I picked this up, and this is where everything changed. From the moment I picked it up, I did not put this book back down until I was finished. And it was the first time in my entire life that I read cover to cover, and I did not even think that was possible. I thought that was just, you know, weirdos did that at the time. It was also the first time reading where it didn't feel like I was reading, but rather I was watching a show. The words didn't come off the pages as just a collection of letters, but rather they came off the page as scenes. They came off as a feeling, and they came off as an adventure. That pulled me deeper into the frozen northern forests of Canada and ignited my love for reading. So that's book 1. Now let's move into book 2. East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I actually read this book not too long ago. It was the beginning of 2025 that I read this book, and this was the first pretty big fictional book that I've ever read. I've read big books before, you know, 500, 600 page books, but those were typically nonfiction books. Just one example, 1941 by Charles C. Mann. I read that. So it's not foreign to me to read a 500, 600 plus page book, but to read it fiction was definitely out of my comfort level. And to be honest, I'm ashamed to admit this, but it definitely is a character development. But for a very long time, I felt like reading fiction was pointless and that you could not extract anything of value from a made-up story. And boy, was I wrong. How naive of me. I bought this book many months before I ever even picked it up and read it. It might even be over a year. But I've heard such good things about it that I decided, let me give it a try. What's the worst that happens? Maybe I just put it down and don't pick it up again, but let's see. Little did I know, I would rip through those 600 plus pages in like 8 days or something. This book single-handedly forced out a massive amount of respect for brilliant writers and for a good fictional story. This is one of the first books that has invoked not only an emotional response out of me, but a physical response out of me. No spoiler alerts, but when Adam at the very end says Tim Shell to Cal, that tore me up. That's something I've never experienced reading before. East of Eden taught me that literature, if it is done correctly, could hold the strings to your heart and body like a puppet master and have total control over you. Book 2 is complete. Let's move on to the final, but not least, third book, Quantum Supremacy by Michio Kaku. Now, I finished this book only a couple weeks ago. I think it was maybe two weeks ago I finished it. Now, let me preface this. I have always been into science, more specifically biology. Although, for example, my grades were nothing to gawk at, quite opposite actually. Biology is something I always did very well in school. My senior year, I was put into advanced placement biology, which is very surprising because all my other grades reflected the exact opposite. All that being said, I never really dabbled into physics. It wasn't until about maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that I was reading a book called The Invention of Prehistory by Stefanos Gerolounas, I think his name is. And he talked about the Fibonacci numbers, or more exact, I should say, the golden ratio. I wasn't totally familiar with what that was, so I looked it up. And next thing I know, I was down a rabbit hole for over an hour learning about Fibonacci's numbers, the golden ratio, and that had my interest massively sparked. While I was down that rabbit hole, I was suggested a video on quantum mechanics, and I've always heard about quantum mechanics. I've heard it's really difficult to understand, so I was like, let me just watch a video and see if I'm interested in it. And boy, was I. So in search of a further and deeper understanding of quantum physics, I immediately started looking up books, and I stumbled across Quantum Supremacy because I was watching a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson, which he had Michio Kaku on, and I recognized Michio Kaku, and then it popped into my head that years ago I listened to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, so it was kind of everything was starting to click. This book would go on to solidify how deep my interest in quantum physics and quantum computing actually was, and it furthered my interest. It opened my eyes to a world that I did not know I had such a rich desire to learn. That's going to conclude the video. Like I said before, this is just how I believe books have power on the personal level. I will make a video that's talking about, through historical and in global effects that books have had, but this is gonna just be for the personal level today. Books can transform the environment around you, and they can change the terrain inside you, and they have the power to change the person that is indulging in their texts. I'm going to leave you with another quote, a quote that I absolutely love by Mark Twain, and I hope that this quote lights a fire inside you to pick up a book and start reading. It goes like this: "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace.